Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is Super Film Support, where you guys submit questions and doubts to me about film photography, and I do my best to answer them on a video. This space is sponsored by camerastore.com. So this week we have a question by James, who has told me that he's ready to upgrade from a Graflex Speed Graphic 4x5 to a field camera that has more adjustments available. After he's gotten over his initial large format terror, I'm finally at a point where he's more comfortable with the camera, and I'd really like to get serious about learning how to manipulate, tilt, shift, focus. I'm prepared to spend some money. Doesn't need to be top of the line, but something more flexible than an Intrepid or Chroma. Not that they're not great cameras. And he's done his usual research about Chamonix, Ebony, Arca Swiss, Shenhao, and whatnot. So for relatedly newbie, he is asking me what camera I recommend. So in 4x5, I've had experience, just to get it out of the way. I've owned Graflex cameras, I've owned Ebony cameras, I've owned Chamonix cameras, I've owned Cambo cameras, CNR cameras. So I've had a pretty big amount of cameras. I use Toyo, Horseman, some others in field cameras. So Vista too, sorry. So basically, if you're going into 4x5, you're looking for a field camera. First thing you have to think about is, do you want it to be new, or you don't mind it being secondhand? Because new limits a lot. There's a whole video that I made on what new large format cameras were available today. I'll link that in the description and maybe see if I can pop it up there too. But there's not so many field new cameras that maybe are not, you know, the cheaper end. So we got the Chroma, the Intrepid, we have the Stenopeca and such. So in the middle range, which is where I think James is looking at, because we have the high end, which is Arca Swiss and Ebony, but Ebony are no longer made. You have people like Chamonix, you have people like Shenhao, there's Canham, which is also sort of middle range. And about those cameras, the one that I recommend the most is Chamonix. It's the one I use and I've come to love. I had an Ebony and it was amazing, but that thing didn't really do anything different to the Chamonix I own today, but it was worth almost twice as much. So when I was using my Ebony, it was so pretty and beautiful and everything was so well made. But honestly, for my use, the Chamonix did 99.9% of everything it did. So I sold the Ebony. Sadly, I shouldn't have sold it because I would have loved to have it still today as a collector more than anything. And I bought a Chamonix. And those Chamonix cameras are being wonderful. I own a 4x5, an 8x10, and an 11x14. So that can tell you how much I like them. They're not so expensive. They run around 1,000 to 1,200 euros or dollars. Sometimes secondhand. The other day I saw an N2 for I think 650 euros, which is ridiculous, really cheap, secondhand. And they do everything. One thing I always tell people when I do large format workshops, I have one not this weekend, next weekend. I always tell people that the amount of movements is not so critical usually. A very small amount of tilt or shift or, basically tilt or shift or any of those things will really get you a long way. People obsess when they start with large format. Oh, because that camera doesn't do plus minus 30-degree tilt. It's not good. Like 30-degree tilt, unless you're doing product photography or something crazy, is usually never needed. I've never needed 30% tilt, except for in the studio trying to do product photography where I use my CNR that does have a lot of tilt and shift and all these things. But if you're out in the field and you're shooting normal conditions, a plus minus 10, 15% degree tilt or such will do a lot. So don't obsess about that. All these cameras you're mentioning have more than enough movements and they will work. You have to look at the weight, you have to look at the size, you have to look at how expensive they are. And I've had the Shenhao in my hands and I had the Chamonix in the hands, and people put them in the same thing. I'm sorry to say the Shenhao look a bit more bulky, a bit more industrial. And I would say the Chamonix is, ever so slightly over them in quality. Doesn't mean that a Shenhao won't work for you. It doesn't work for a lot of people. But I've handled both. I've seen them folded in the size and the bulkiness. The Chamonix is much smaller and it's lighter. So I like it better. It's true that Shenhao has a model that has all the movements in the back and in the front and all this stuff. If you're obsessed with all the movements in the world, Shenhao is a good field camera to get. But if you can do with a little bit of less movements on field camera. If you're usually using it in the field, a Chamonix should do great. It has a graph log back. You want to look at those things. Graph log back, so you can put, roll film. You can do 6x7, 6x9, 612, 617. That it has a good focusing screen with you can add, I think it sells Fresnel. I say Fresnel, but Fresnel screen, so you can use it for wide angles lenses. That has a nice precise focusing, that the knobs tighten when you tighten them, and all these things are important. The looks of it is important to a certain extent, but it's a camera, it's a tool that you're going to be using out there. So I highly recommend that camera. I use it for my own work, I use it for my own workshops, and people love them. Every time someone does a workshop, they pretty much immediately after go ahead and buy one. I do sometimes collaborate with them, so if you want to look, I'll leave the link below, because if you do purchase it through their Instagram or Facebook accounts, it helps this channel. But nothing to do with that is my recommendation. I was a user before any of that happened. So yeah, if you have any other doubts, James, don't doubt in asking me. And for those who found it interesting or anything, you can leave a comment below. Remember, Superfilm Support, www.superfilm support. It takes 2 minutes to ask me anything you want about film photography, and I'll do my best to answer you. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.